You just want it to be perfect. And I get it. This is something I hear all the time. But that perfectionistic mentality can actually make your clutter problems way worse. And it can make decluttering honestly just feel like this impossible mission. There's good news though. It is not impossible. Your dream of a simpler home is waiting. So in today's video, I'm going to break down how perfectionism impacts our declutter efforts and ways to help. So when I went down the rabbit hole of researching content for this video about perfectionism, I actually discovered there are three types of perfectionists. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to be referencing the most common one, which is a socially prescribed perfectionist. Socially prescribed perfectionists are very self-critical. They feel immense pressure to be the best and worry others will reject them. Perceived external standards, which can come from family, workplace culture, society, and the like, can lead to anxiety and low confidence. But the drawback of perfectionism isn't that it just holds you back from being your most happy or most successful, productive self. Perfectionistic tendencies have actually been linked to a laundry list of clinical issues like depression, anxiety, and hoarding, just to name a few. And the trouble is that for perfectionists, performance is often intertwined with their sense of self. And when us perfectionists, because I'm still recovering from being a perfectionist, when we don't succeed, it's not that we just feel disappointment about how we did. We feel shame and disappointment about who we are. And when it comes to looking around your messy home or your cluttered home, it might stir up thoughts like, what's wrong with me? What is so wrong with me that I can't figure this out? I stink at this, right? And we just beat ourselves up. We are so hard on ourselves. Or maybe a thought like, everyone else can keep their home tidy and uncluttered. What's my problem? I'm just not measuring up. And ironically, perfectionism can then become a defense tactic to keep that shame at bay. Because if you're perfect, you never fail. And if you don't try and fail, then there's no shame. And as a result, perfectionism can actually lead to procrastination. And this pursuit of perfectionism becomes this vicious cycle. And because it's impossible to be perfect, a fruitless one. So how does perfectionism play into your home and clutter? Perfectionism actually shows up in quite a few ways when it comes to our relationship with stuff. Take the example of the thoughts I mentioned earlier. Someone who declutters and sees the mess, then come back. If you tell yourself, I'm disappointed, but it's okay, I'm still a good person, that's healthy. But if the message is, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, that's perfectionism. And I see this time and time again. So two ways perfectionism shows up. Number one, it can actually cause us to be much bigger consumers. And number two, it often reduces the amount of clutter we're able to get rid of. So let's talk about how perfectionism can actually cause us to buy a lot more stuff. One thing I've observed is that if we develop perfectionism, say about our looks, is that we become a guaranteed lifelong customer of buying products that promise to change our bodies, make us feel beautiful, and hide our insecurities, or even make us feel worthy. Studies estimate that 83% of women are dissatisfied with how their bodies look, and every time we go online or get on social media or even open a magazine while we're waiting at the dentist's office, we are being spoon-fed all the ways we can improve our looks by doing what? Buying stuff. We see roughly 4,000 to 10,000 ads per day. Many of these are promising us these transformations and feelings we so desperately desire. And also, don't discount if you spend time on social media, things like Reels or TikTok videos. A lot of these things you might be seeing are advertisements in of themselves. They often just don't come off as traditional advertisements, and that's by design. I would even drive that number up of the amount of ads that most people are seeing each day. But did you know that more often than not, we are actually not buying products? And here's what I mean by that. What we're really buying are stories, solutions, beliefs, transformations, emotions, and feelings. Want to feel younger? There's a lotion for that. Want thicker hair so you can feel more beautiful? There's a shampoo for that. Want to feel stronger? You can go get some new gym shoes or some protein or heck, even another water bottle. like we need another water bottle, right? There's exercise apps and exercise gear. You get the idea. And before we know it, we are on this unconscious journey of consumerism and constantly buying products that promise us youth, beauty, and attractiveness. Now, I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with buying stuff. I still buy stuff, but for perfectionists, that this can lead to this rabbit hole of consumerism very quickly. And ironically, many people who do this never reach the point where they have enough. And it's this never-ending, exhaustive search for perfectionism through consuming. And here's how perfectionism can roadblock your declutter progress. I often tell my students is to focus on getting 10, 15, 20 minutes a day and just getting started with a little bit to create these habits and consistency. But all my perfectionists out there know how actually excruciatingly painful it is to start a project and not be able to finish it. I hear this from people all the time. They'll say, I just wish I had an entire weekend where I could knock this out. Or if only I had 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of time so that I could just be focused and just get this done. And this absolutely can be a perfectionistic tendency. Falling back to that, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all, right? Maybe you have this vision of what decluttering should look like in your head. Or maybe you have this vision of what it used to look like before you had kids, or before you moved across the country, or before you got married and then got their stuff into your home, or before you got really busy, whatever that is. And for whatever reason now, that's just not possible. And if you can't execute it in the way you think it should look like, you don't. And instead of taking action, you get stuck in procrastination. Boy, that's a vicious cycle to be in. I've been there too. So self-talk of a perfectionist from this standpoint can sound like this. I'll start when I feel ready. If I can't get it done perfectly, it's not worth doing. Or I have to get it all done now, which ties into what I talked about in the beginning. Perfectionists tend to be emotionally dependent on that outcome. And any imperfect outcome can trigger those shames of frustration, shame, and guilt. So again, why even get started? Because we don't want to feel that way. And do those feelings make us want to keep decluttering or try again? Heck no. And guess what? We actually never feel ready. Oh my goodness. Any of this sounding familiar? This was my life for years. So what do we do? All right, Coach Katie with some advice. So number one, as a perfectionist or recovering perfectionist, it's so important to create new ideas and benchmarks of success and not get stuck on what should be. Stop looking for elusive 5-hour time slots in your day to do the job right, or however you envision decluttering. Because that 5-hour time slot, guess what? It's never going to appear. And even if it magically did appear one day, I can promise you're going to be spending time in that 5 hours doing other things maybe that you want to do, because decluttering is an easy can to kick down the road. I mean, let's be honest. Instead, you really need to focus on these small daily habits, 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here. Something really simple like setting a timer on your phone or on your stovetop can be really helpful here. Another tip I heard recently is the 2-minute rule. When you are starting to create a habit, you do it by just doing it, whatever habit you want to create, for 2 minutes. It reduces the overwhelm and it helps you take action, and then you can build from that 2 minutes. So if 10 minutes or even 15 minutes still feels overwhelming, try that 2-minute rule and see how you do. Because remember, this way you're still making progress instead of staying paralyzed and stuck in procrastinating. Another thing I really want you to do is to rewrite your definition of what failure looks like, because trying and doing a little bit at a time is, again, it's still going to move the needle. So if you rewrite your definition of failure to not doing anything at all, maybe that'll help motivate you to just take these little bit of action steps every single day. And remember that decluttering done imperfectly is still a blessing to you and your family. Also, failing doesn't make you a failure. It's a small nuance in language, but it's really impactful for your self-worth. So this is something you'll constantly need to be reminding yourself of as you are decluttering. Number 2 is stop comparing your home to other people's. My goodness, I hear people all the time say, I feel like I'm the only one who struggles with clutter. I'm just not measuring up. What's wrong with me? And it keeps people stuck and overwhelmed and in that shame and guilt cycle. In fact, maybe you should stop following all those perfectly curated home improvement accounts you follow, because they might be doing more harm than good. And I think for perfectionists, that's 100% the case. And I get it. Maybe you enjoy following them because you get ideas of how to decorate your home or how to organize your home or style it. But again, our subconscious mind is going to constantly compare, and that's not going to help us as perfectionists. So do yourself a favor, take a break, walk away, and spend that time you spend looking at home improvement accounts on Instagram and declutter your house. Number 3 is remember that your home does not define you. Doesn't that just make you feel better? You are not your home. You are not your mess. You are not your clutter. Psychologist Katie Rasmussen says this: it's about creating an environment where imperfection isn't just accepted, but is celebrated, because it means we're human. And at the end of the day, you must remember that you don't have to be perfect to be loved or to be lovable. And you don't need to seek perfection to live the life you desire. There is no such thing as perfection. And honestly, that's what makes the world so interesting. Maybe you're looking at your holiday decor and realize you spent a lot of time trying to perfect that too. So let's declutter it. it, click on the video on your screen right now to learn how.